couple of years ago, I went out to Montana to spend some time with my cousin. She works with the Forest Service, mainly doing hydrology work, which basically means she spends most of her time riding out into remote areas to test streams and snow runoff. It sounded like a good excuse to get away for a few days, so I went with her. The plan was simple: 2 days out, camp overnight, then head back. The first day was exactly what you'd expect. Open land, clean air, nothing but mountains and trees in every direction. It was quiet in a way that feels rare if you're not used to it. No traffic, no distant noise, nothing artificial. We set up camp that night and everything felt completely normal. The second day is where things got strange. We were a few hours into riding when my cousin turned back to me and asked if I wanted to see something weird. That immediately got my attention. She didn't explain anything, just veered off the path we'd been following and started heading down into this narrow fold in the land. It wasn't a proper trail, more like a natural dip between ridges that slowly closed in the further we went. We rode for close to 2 hours like that, getting further and further away from anything familiar. By that point, there were no signs of human activity at all. No tracks, no markers, nothing. Eventually, we reached a small clearing at the end of the ravine. It was quiet there. Not peaceful, quiet, just still. She dismounted and told me to do the same. We tied the horses off and she told me to follow her along a narrow wildlife path that cut into the trees. Before we started, she handed me a small radio, one of those emergency ones you can wind up or plug in, with a built-in light. I didn't ask why. I just took it. The path wasn't long, maybe a minute or two into the trees, but it felt more enclosed than anywhere else we'd been. The branches hung lower, the ground dipped slightly, and the air felt heavier. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was just debris, something metal sticking out of the ground. But as I got closer, I realized it was a coil of wire. It came straight up out of the dirt, tightly wound, like it had been fed up from below. It wasn't thick cable either, just standard wiring, the kind you'd see in a house. That alone didn't make sense. There were no buildings, no infrastructure, nothing out there that would need wiring. Naturally, I followed it. It ran along the ground for a bit, then looped up and over low branches, almost like someone had deliberately strung it between trees. Then it dropped back down again, weaving around rocks and roots. My cousin stayed a few steps behind me the entire time. She wasn't talking anymore. That should have been my first real warning. After a minute or so, the wire led to something that made even less sense. A desk, just sitting there in the forest. No shelter, no covering, no chair, nothing around it at all. It looked like something you'd find in an old classroom. Metal legs, worn faux wood surface, slightly scratched and weathered, but still intact. Mounted to the side of it was a standard electrical outlet. I just stood there, trying to process what I was looking at. A desk in the middle of nowhere was already strange enough. But an outlet? That made no sense at all. There was no generator, no visible power source, no buildings within miles. I turned back to my cousin to ask what the hell this was supposed to be. Instead of answering, she stepped forward, took the radio from my hands, and pulled out the charging cord. Without saying a word, she plugged it into the outlet. The radio came to life instantly. No delay, no flicker, just full power. Loud, aggressive static filled the clearing. That's when something shifted. Up until that moment, it had just been confusing. Now it felt wrong, not in a dramatic way, not like something was about to jump out. Just wrong. like we weren't supposed to be there. I remember asking her where the power was coming from. She didn't answer straight away. She just stood there, listening to the static. Then she said, "It's always on." That didn't help. I asked her how she even found it in the first place. She hesitated for a second before answering, said someone else had shown her, another worker, but she didn't say who, and she didn't elaborate. We stayed there for maybe another minute. The static never changed. No voices, no signal, nothing but that constant empty noise. I started to feel uneasy the longer we stood there, not because of what I could see, but because of how normal she was acting. Like this wasn't the first time she'd done this, like it wasn't a big deal. Eventually, she unplugged the radio, handed it back to me, and said we should head back. She didn't explain anything, didn't offer any theories, just turned and walked back down the path. I followed her without saying much. The whole ride back, I kept thinking about that desk, about the wire, about the fact that something, somewhere, was feeding power into that outlet, in a place where nothing should exist. When we got back to camp, I asked her again where the power was coming from. This time she just said she didn't know. And then she added something that stuck with me. She said, "It's been there longer than I've been working out here." I asked if anyone had ever tried to trace the wire. She shook her head, said it disappears underground not far from where we found it. No one's ever dug it up. No one's ever followed it far enough to find where it starts. And then she said something else, something I didn't realize was strange until later. She said, "You're not supposed to mess with things like that out here." I never went back to that spot, and I never asked her about it again. But every now and then I think about that radio, about how it powered on instantly, and how that static sounded. Because it wasn't just noise. It felt like something trying to come through, and not quite making it. I used to do night drives to clear my head. Nothing dramatic about it. Just long, quiet roads, no traffic, no noise. It helped me switch off. There was one route I took more than any other, a narrow mountain road that cut through miles of forest. Hardly any signal, no streetlights, and barely any houses once you got a few miles in. I only ever drove it during the day, until one night I couldn't sleep and figured it wouldn't be any different in the dark. That was a mistake. I set off just after 11. The first part of the drive was normal. Empty roads, a few distant lights from houses in the valley, nothing unusual. But the further I went, the darker it got. Not just normal darkness either. It felt thicker, like the headlights weren't reaching as far as they should. I remember thinking that was strange, but I kept going. About 10 minutes in, I pulled over at a small turnout overlooking the trees. I'd stopped there plenty of times before. During the day, you could see for miles. That night, there was nothing, just black. I turned the engine off and stepped out of the car. The silence hit immediately. No wind, no insects, no distant sounds at all. It didn't feel natural. I stood there for a minute or two, trying to get used to it, telling myself it was just because it was late. That's when I noticed how uncomfortable I felt. Not scared, just wrong, like I shouldn't be there. I leaned against the car and looked out into the darkness, trying to shake it off. That's when I saw the eyes. At first I thought it was just light reflecting off something in the trees. 2 small points, low to the ground. Then they blinked. I straightened up, focusing on them. They didn't move, just stayed there, fixed in place. Probably a deer, I told myself. That would make sense. But something about the height felt off. Too low at first. Then slowly, they rose. Not quickly, Not suddenly, just lifted, like whatever I was looking at was standing up. I felt that shift in my stomach immediately, the kind that tells you something's not right before you understand why. I reached back into the car and grabbed my flashlight. When I pointed it toward the trees, the beam barely cut through the darkness. For a second I couldn't see anything. Then the shape came into view. It wasn't a deer. It had the general shape, but everything about it was wrong. The legs were too long, too thin, bending slightly in a way they shouldn't. The body was narrow but stretched, like it didn't quite fit together properly. And the head didn't match at all. It was too large, angled strangely, and when the light hit it properly, I realized it wasn't facing me the way I thought it was. It had been looking at me sideways, and now it turned, slowly, too smoothly. The eyes locked onto me. I lowered the flashlight without meaning to. Every instinct I had was telling me to get back in the car, but I didn't move. Not yet, because the thing didn't move either. It just stood there, watching. Then it took a step forward. The movement was wrong, not like an animal, too controlled, too deliberate. That snapped me out of it. I got back into the car, locked the doors, and started the engine. The headlights flooded the trees. For a second I lost sight of it. Then I saw it again, closer, standing just at the edge of the road now. I didn't wait. I pulled out and started driving. Not fast at first, just enough to get moving. I checked the mirror. Nothing behind me. Then I looked ahead again and hit the brakes. It was in the road, further up, standing in the middle of the lane. There was no way it could have moved that fast. No way it could have gotten there without me seeing it. I slowed to a stop about 20 feet away. The headlights lit it up fully now, and that's when I saw its legs. They weren't shaped right. They bent too far back at the joints. And its front limbs, they weren't hooves. They were something else. Long, narrow, almost like hands. It tilted its head again, watching me, waiting. I didn't honk, didn't flash the lights. Something told me not to. I slowly shifted the car into reverse and started backing up. The thing didn't move. It just tracked me with its head. As I put more distance between us, it took another step forward. Then another. Still slow. Still controlled. Like it wasn't in any hurry. That was worse than if it had charged. I kept backing up until I reached a bend in the road. As soon as it was out of sight, I turned the car around as fast as I could and drove. I didn't care about the road, the turns, anything. I just drove. I didn't stop until I was back near the edge of town where there were lights again. I checked the mirrors the whole way. Nothing followed me. Nothing appeared again. But I never went back there at night. And the part that stuck with me wasn't just how it looked. It was how it moved. Like it knew exactly what I was going to do. Like it was letting me leave. Like it didn't need to chase me. Because it already knew. I wasn't coming back. He wasn't the kind of person who hiked alone. That was something he told himself more than once on the drive up. But he'd needed the quiet, needed to clear his head, and the trail he picked wasn't supposed to be difficult. 8 hours in, 8 hours out. Simple. The first half of the day went exactly how he expected. Clean air, endless trees, the kind of silence you only get deep in the mountains. It was peaceful. Too peaceful, maybe. He didn't see a single other person the entire time. Not unusual, but still something he noticed. By the time he turned back, the sun was already lower than he'd planned for. He'd stayed out longer than he meant to. Still, he wasn't worried. He had a flashlight. He had the trail. All he had to do was retrace his steps. That's when things started to feel off. At first it was small things, a bend in the path he didn't remember, a cluster of rocks that didn't look familiar. He stopped a couple of times, turning slowly, trying to get his bearings. Everything looked the same: trees, dirt, shadows stretching longer as the light faded. He told himself he was overthinking it, kept walking, but the further he went, the less anything felt right. The trail didn't look like the one he came in on. Not exactly. And that's when the first real wave of panic hit him. He checked his phone. No signal. Of course. The sky darkened faster than he expected. By the time he fully accepted, he was lost. It was already too late to fix it. Night had taken over. The forest changed completely. What had felt calm during the day now felt suffocating. Every sound carried. Branches cracking in the distance. Leaves shifting when there was no wind. His flashlight beam felt small, weak, like it barely pushed back the darkness. He knew he couldn't keep moving like that. Not in unfamiliar terrain. Not in the dark. One bad step and he could break something. Fall. Make things worse. So he slowed down, started looking for somewhere, anywhere, he could stay until morning. That's when he saw it, through the trees, a shape that didn't belong, straight lines, angles, a structure. He moved toward it carefully, pushing through branches until it came into view. A cabin, old, falling apart, wood warped and darkened with age. The roof sagged slightly in the middle. It looked abandoned, like it had been sitting there for years, untouched. And yet, something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous, just wrong. Still, he didn't have a choice. His flashlight flickered once. Battery warning. That made the decision for him. He stepped up onto the porch. The wood creaked under his weight. The door stood closed. He knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. No movement inside. No sound. Just the forest behind him. He waited a few seconds longer, then slowly tried the handle. It turned. The door opened. The air inside was stale, cold, but not as bad as he expected. He stepped in, sweeping the flashlight across the room. Dust, bare walls, old floorboards, and in the center, a bed, perfectly placed, clean, too clean, a single mattress, fresh sheets, no dust on it at all. It didn't match the rest of the place, not even close. He stood there for a while, staring at it. Something about it bothered him, but exhaustion was starting to take over, and logic kicked in. Someone probably used this place occasionally, maybe hunters, maybe hikers like him. Either way, it was better than being outside. He shut the door behind him and pushed a chair against it, just in case. Then he set his flashlight down and sat on the bed. It didn't creak, didn't feel old. It felt normal. That made it worse somehow. As he lay back, he noticed them. The walls, they weren't bare, not completely. There were paintings, dozens of them. He hadn't seen them at first. The beam of his flashlight hadn't caught them properly. But now, they were all around him. Portraits, every wall, different people, different faces, all staring directly at him. Men, women, old, young, and every single one of them was smiling. Not natural smiles, not happy, wide, still, unmoving. He sat up slightly, shining the light across them. The eyes followed the light, or at least it felt like they did. He told himself they were just paintings, nothing more, just old portraits left behind. But the longer he looked, the more uncomfortable he felt, like he wasn't alone in the room anymore. He turned the flashlight off. That helped. Out of sight, out of mind. The darkness swallowed everything, and eventually, exhaustion won. He fell asleep. He woke up suddenly. No idea what time it was. For a moment he didn't know where he was. Then it came back to him. The forest, the cabin, the bed, everything. The room was quiet, completely still. He didn't move, just listened. Nothing. After a few seconds, he reached for his flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut across the room, and that's when he froze. The walls were empty. No paintings, not one, just bare wood. For a second, he thought he was still dreaming, still half asleep. He stood up slowly, scanning the room again. Nothing. No frames, no marks, no sign that anything had ever been hanging there. His chest tightened. That didn't make sense. He knew what he saw. He turned toward the door, and that's when he noticed something else. Light, faint, gray morning light, coming through. Windows, multiple windows, where there hadn't been any before. The walls weren't walls, not fully. They were broken, gaps, openings, places where glass should have been, but wasn't. He stepped closer and looked out. The forest was right there, close, too close, like the cabin wasn't sealed at all, like anything outside could have been looking in, watching him, while he slept. He backed away slowly, and that's when it hit him. The paintings. They hadn't been paintings. Not exactly. Not decoration. Not something left behind. They had been there, watching him, all night, standing where the windows were now, facing inward, smiling. He didn't pack anything, didn't think. He just ran, straight out the door, back into the forest. Didn't stop, didn't look back. He found the trail about 20 minutes later. Pure luck. Got back to his car just after sunrise, and he never went back. Never told anyone where that cabin was. But there's one thing he's never been able to explain. Those faces, the details, the expressions, they weren't random. They looked real. Too real. Like people. Like they'd been standing there, looking in, waiting. And when morning came, they were gone.